a wrestler.
Rounds. Triangle. He's got it. It's locked in. Bad spot for Allen Robinson.
Let's get into the detail on this guy. I think this guy is extremely well detailed. Hold on. One second. This guy is extremely well detailed. I mean, this is based off the Anthony Pettis fight when he first came really back to the UFC. It was kind of like his comeback fight, and definitely looks like that. The short from that fight. I'll put a picture up of it over here, hopefully, so you guys can see. But yeah, definitely love all the freaking painting that the customizer did when it comes to the muscle. This definitely looks a whole lot better than the usual UFC figures from the ones from back in the days of the Jakks Pacific ones. Not hating on those figures. I mean, those figures were way... I was saying, so when you go to take off the... As I was saying, when you go to take these guys' heads off the figure, right, it's very easy, has no resistance. And what I mean by no resistance is it isn't hard. When you go to take offs, even with wrestling figures, even though their heads are meant to take off nowadays, because they do give you interchangeable heads and everything, sometimes it is a little hard to actually take their heads off. With this one, it doesn't. And the cool thing about this, because of the material in it, it won't rub the paint off. And on top of that, it's not as if like this thing feels like it's just going to fall off every 5 seconds. I mean, I can... You know what I'm saying? And his head is not coming off. So that's a really cool thing. Besides the head scans, as we've been stuck on for the last fucking 30 seconds or so, we have obviously a couple different hands. So you have the pointing hand, obviously kind of like when you rock like Leon Edwards when he pointed at him. You know what I'm saying?
We do have a fun as well as jiu-jitsu, boxing.
So you can have that point hand, and then you also obviously have the two middle finger hands, because Nate Diaz is obviously super known for that. And as I said earlier, the extra head. And that's it for as far as accessories. The only thing I feel as though they could somewhat have added on to the accessories would be at least one other hand, and that would have been like an open hand. And the only reason I would have wanted an open hand is so he could actually do the Stockton slap. Which is just a basic slap, obviously, but he just said Stockton, he called it the Stockton slap, him and his brother Nick. So it's a little a shame that it didn't come with that, but honestly, for what's here, it still is amazing. But let's move on. I forgot to mention as I was recording this video is the detail in the eyes. I mean, man, you can see the light shine off of it, and it looks literally like Nate Diaz's real eyes, or at least a pair of real eyes, right? I've never found myself looking deeply into Nate Diaz's eyes to know what they look like, but my God, how close to life these look, man. Like, these look real, like the eyes look fucking real, man. But yeah. As far as articulation goes, it has about the same amount as the usual UFC figures here, and the usual UFC figures, these are obviously from the 2000s, so with the usual amount of articulation, you obviously get those butterfly joints, as I mentioned earlier, because these figures were way ahead of their time, that are a classic torso articulation, which obviously goes pretty far forward. Not the most forward, but it does go a decent amount for all you would need, and backwards it goes a pretty good amount, even though it kind of looks a little unnatural with having someone bent like this, like unless they're getting their back cracked by like Bane or something, right? But overall, I think it gets it done for Nate Diaz, obviously, and for just the UFC figures in general. I don't think there's anything you would need them to do that would be like super crazy that you couldn't do with this. The only downside when it comes to these UFC figures is the only real downside when it comes to these is, as I was going to say, is over time these figures can get very loose, especially if you play with them. So as an example, I have my Chuck Liddell figure here, and his legs are pretty loose. Oftentimes he wants to fall forward, as you just seen. and you know, it's a little hard to pose him at times because of that. Like, I would love to do stop motions with him, but like, he literally does not stand, and because of that, I just really need to get a new one that doesn't have such loose joints, because as you can see, I'm struggling to stand them right here, which is a pose that I guarantee I can get with any of these other figures. So as a GSP, just as an example, you know, same, you know, Chuck Liddell pose, you know, I got him to do it no problem, not even at all any struggle. But that's because this GSP figure, when I bought it, I actually took it out of the packaging. This figure was brand spanking new, so you know, there is no wear and tear on this guy. So, but that's just something to keep in mind when you do get these old UFC figures. You know what I mean? Because these figures do, you know, they are older as well, so I'm not sure how, you know, how the plastic was back in the days compared to nowadays, as far as, you know, how long the joints stay tight and all of that. So, but yeah, let's move on. As far as his scale goes, obviously he's going to scale well next to the UFC Jax figures, but it also kind of depends on which figures we're talking about as well, because GSP and Nate Diaz's figures are pretty accurately height, but not every single figure back in the days was exactly proportionately correct as far as the height goes. So just as an example, Nate Diaz is, I think, 6 foot in real life, and GSP is about 5'11". So they're about at proper height, but I think someone like Chuck Liddell is a significantly more tall, or should be significantly taller than Nate Diaz. I think he's like 6'4", 5", something like that. But obviously Nate Diaz looks a tad bit taller than him in this case. So even across to own UFC Jax specific line, the scale unfortunately was all over the place. Like, I mean, it's not the worst, but considering it was back in the 2000s, no one really thought about it that much. But at least I don't think people were really thinking about it that much. But I mean, it is what it is with that. Him compared to the Storm collectible Mike Tyson, goes in pretty well with the Storm collectible figures, considering Mike's around 5'10". Nate's around 6 foot, so this is pretty accurate. The figures that are unfortunately like completely out of the scaling, I think, with them are like the wrestling figures, as far as WWE, AEW, because I think Roman's like 6'4" in real life, something crazy like that, 6'1", 6'2", and unfortunately, obviously, he's not at all like even close to Nate Diaz as far as like Nate Diaz towers over him. So as far as the scaling goes, with wrestling figures, it's probably not gonna work, and unfortunately with the new UFC figures, it probably won't work either, because again, Jorge Masvidal is around 5'11", so Nate Diaz would very much be taller than him, but he would be around where GSP was, so Nate Diaz would not be this tall compared to Jorge Masvidal, you know. Like, Jorge Masvidal is shorter than Nate Diaz, that's for sure. You know, Nate is 6 foot, but like, come on now, freaking George is not that damn small, all right? He's not that fucking short. But anyways, let's move on. Yeah, so overall, I'm pretty happy with this guy. My one negative, or my two negatives with this figure is, and these are both very little nitpicks. I wish it would have came with an open palm hand to do the Stockton slap, as I mentioned earlier. I think that would have been really cool. And also, I wish they would have chose a different attire. Again, very, very nitpicky. Not that I dislike that fight or anything like that. I think that fight was really good, but just not my favorite Nate Diaz attire. And I would have kind of preferred it to be like a younger Nate Diaz. Excuse me. Shit. Just because I kind of miss back when in the UFC, when back when every UFC fighter kind of had like different shorts, and every single one of them had like different sponsors on their shorts, you know, that were paying them and stuff. Obviously, the fighters got paid more, and overall, it was just made it look cool because everyone looked super unique and stuff. Wish we'd go back to that, but you know, it is what it is at the end of the day. But besides that, man, you guys should let me know in the comments if you guys are interested in things like this, because I could always make community posts about customs and things like that, especially if there's obviously more than one and I'm not just gonna buy it. This dude was making a pre-sale of these essentially, and unfortunately, you know, he's already done all his pre-sales, because you had on the listing, on the eBay listing, it basically said you have up to I don't know what day it was to buy this, and then he was gonna start working on them, and for a couple of weeks he was gonna work on them and like start messaging people and telling them, you know, hey, we're this far along with I'm this far along with making it, and blah 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 blah. So yeah, again, if you guys are interested in me, you know, making community notes about this, being like, hey, you know, I just found this, I ordered one myself. If you guys want to, here's the link to it. You know, you guys let me know. And also, you know, pretty happy with this dude. And some people may complain about the price of this dude, considering it was $200. I know it's a bit pricey, but it's not mass produced. It's the thing that I always have to explain to people. It's like, this is one person making this, you know, like this Evan Tanner figure over here is a mass produced product. Not that there's anything wrong with that, right? Like, I don't hate mass produced products. I mean, most of my collection is mass produced products, right? But I think just there's something about one person using their craftsmanship to just make a figure, especially making it look as beautiful as a figure like this, man. And you know, it shows, you know, the passion when you look at every little freaking detail in this figure. I mean, just the torso is like so much more realistic than the Evan Tanner figures. Like, this looks so much more like real skin than this figure. Again, not dissing it. Obviously, this is, you know, still a cool figure, but just when, you know, you have someone who's paying meticulous detail, paying that much am I even saying that right? They're paying a whole lot of detail to this damn thing, all right? And they're putting all the detailing in, right? Like, it shows in their craftsmanship. And yeah, man, I think these things are amazing. And people just really need to remember, you can't put a price on art sometimes. Of course, you have to be careful sometimes, though, as far as customs, because there's some people who will literally, what they'll do is just swap a couple of parts, and they'll call it the end of the day, and they'll try and charge people $300 because they might not know, you know, what the damn thing is. They might just think, oh, this person just made it from hand to scratch. You know what I mean? So be careful with that. Anyways, though, y'all, again, thank you to Elephant Handmade for this. Thing is really, really dope, and really love it. But hope you guys are doing well, man. But I'm gonna get you guys out of here. Sorry for stumbling over my words so much, y'all. Been a bit of a long day, but hoping you guys are doing well. Hope you're having a good day. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it happens to be when you're watching this. Hoping you and your family are doing well. And the message, as usual. For the message of the day, we're talking about banking on yourself. Always believe in yourself, man. Because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to believe in you. And when you believe in yourself and you go forward and you try, you might fall down a couple of times, man. But the fact that you keep getting up and you keep trying at things in itself, you know, you're succeeding. You know, so many people are scared to fall down, and, you know, they fall down once and they never get back up. You know, imagine if Tony Hawk ate shit one time on the skateboard and decided, you know what, man, I'm calling it fucking quits. He would have never became who the fuck he is today. And the same thing goes for many fighters, you know. They lost a fight more than likely once, even if it wasn't per se like in an MMA fight. They lost a fight on the streets, or they got their ass beat in sparring, or in the gym, you know, whatever it was. And, you know, it is what it was. You know, they didn't give up, though. They didn't just completely stop. They kept going. You know, and that's what you got to do. You got to keep going and fighting for yourself, man. Because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, no one else is going to fight for you. You got to fight for yourself. And I don't inherently mean that as in just like a combat sports setting. I mean just in general in life. But seriously, though, hope you are doing well. And remember, man, as I keep saying it, bank on yourself.